All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of PLA with myself, Nick, and Bruno. We've got two questions today. The first one is more tax-related question, and the second one has to do, we'll jump in with Nick, which has to do more with leases and forces of nature, so to speak. Bruno, the first question, we've got basically a client that runs office spaces, right? It's a mixed use. And what they've done is that they've bought obviously flowers to make their place look more presentable in order to get more clients renting out the space. Obviously now they've submitted those expenses of which they bought the flowers to the actual accountant, and the accountant has actually informed them that this cannot be deducted as an expense. I do want to shed more light there in terms of a tax perspective, whether that is true or not, and what are some of considerations around that.
Sure. So we get this question quite often, especially with landlords, commercial landlords and landlords that run Airbnbs, for example. Also business owners that run their businesses at premises and they buy certain things for their offices at the premises, and they want to basically know what expenditure can they deduct from income tax. Now, the short answer to this is as long as the expenditure was actually incurred for the purposes of trade, you are allowed to deduct it from your income tax. And bearing in mind that buying something, for example, like flowers, isn't for your own personal benefit. It's for the office benefit. Whether it's necessary or not is not actually the question at play here. It's for the sake of the tenants. It's to create an environment where they might want to spend time there, or you might get more tenants for it. So you are actually incurring these expenses for the purposes of trade. Now, maybe to just break it down a little bit further. So the expenses have for starters, SARS doesn't require that the expenses are actually necessary. So there is no test that looks at an expense and tries to make a determination on whether it would result in a profit. The idea is in the course of trade. So some expenses unfortunately take place. They're incurred and it might not be the best idea, but that's not actually the test. The test is if they're in the course of a trade. Now, if you're buying, for example, anything for an office where you're trying to make the office pretty, like take Airbnbs, for instance. In Airbnbs, there is an actual function towards be it photos or paintings or flowers, anything that makes the premises look attractive would obviously be in the course of actually trying to earn some income. And there is a purpose of earning income. Might not be direct income. You're not selling the flowers necessarily, but you're making it more appealing in order to get more tenants, more guests, get your staff members, boost their morale. So these are usually acceptable expenses that you can deduct for income tax. And this is just an example. I mean, it's a very simple example. I think the example of flowers and decor comes up quite often because people are never too sure whether SARS would actually find these acceptable. But I mean, these range across the board, anything, even if you water purification systems, exact same concept. So you're doing it for your staff members. You're ensuring that your staff members are there. They're able to trade, and you're doing it for the benefit of your staff, which ultimately is supposed to be an income earning exercise and for the purposes of trade.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you very much, Bruno. Always a lot to consider when it comes to obviously business expenses and tax. And